What's up? So we are back here with a SE review. My name is Pierce Watkins. I am the guy who you can't see the face of, that dude. And I'm joined here by a whole bunch of other people, and I will let them introduce them, or I can introduce them either way. But we got Anthony, we got Roman, Reid, and Michael.
What's up?
They're awesome people.
Hey.
If you're not subscribed to all of them, you should, because they're pretty sweet. And we're going to be reviewing two SE videos today. One of them is mine. It's a talk with a young gentleman about blessings. And then what is the other one? The other one is, I forgot what the title of that one was.
Mark Solomon's video. The title is "The Gender Assigned to Us at Birth Does Not Dictate Who We Are."
Yes, that one.
Cool. Two, huh? We don't usually do two in one shot.
Well, mine is pretty darn short.
Yeah.
Yeah, yours is shorter and it's text-based, but you have people narrating it. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. I am doing my half, and I had someone else do the other half.
I was wondering if the person who you talked to was also the narrator, if you managed to finagle that or no.
No. I actually wanted to have a voice conversation with him, but he said his internet was too slow to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
When was that recorded? And are we going to cue that one up and get into it, or?
Yeah. It must have been recorded just like a month ago-ish. So I got it up pretty quick.
Thumbnail looks great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really
but for the grace of God, with some prayer hands on it. Okay.
Interesting.
right. Let's get into the video.
Awesome. Let's
A
do
young
it.
man from Western Africa randomly sent me
Oh, hang on. Got to refresh.
I like that.
a
this
young
is
man
text-
from Western Africa randomly sent me a message.
What's happening?
Mhm.
A young man from Western Africa randomly sent me a message.
Really?
Now, out of all times.
A young
Where was he
man
from? Look at
from
that.
Western Africa randomly sent me a message. I'm not sure what his original intent was, but we ended up having a very
Laggy. Oh, it's the first time this has happened.
I did upgrade my StreamYard to 10, and I turned on the 1080p setting. Maybe that's causing the issue.
Ah,
Or is it just YouTube? Sometimes it crashes.
I've
Yeah.
never had an issue with YouTube ever.
interesting conversation. It was completely done through text,
There
but
we
this
go.
is a vocal.
God damn it.
Oh, this is
Auto?
a YouTube thing. There's some blockage between YouTube and local distributor. I've seen this before.
You stop the
Local
sharing.
distributor.
Yeah,
Huh.
it takes a while. I've seen this before.
Try a different. Want to try a different video completely, just to kind of rule that out as the cause.
I think I still have the video on my computer. Can I share it locally? Is that a possibility?
If you have
No.
host privileges, you can. Sorry, folks, this happens.
It's never done this before.
You played it locally. Yeah, you need to have
Yeah, I got
StreamYard.
it.
You got it?
It looks like it's going to allow me to do that. So
I wonder if the audio will
Right.
come through. Yeah, we probably just won't be able to see you or hear you.
Oh, gotcha.
Sharing it how? Oh, you can add a video?
I can. Yeah.
Okay, great.
A young man from Western Africa randomly sent me a message. I'm not sure what his original intent was, but we ended up having a very interesting conversation. It was completely done through text, but this is a vocal reenactment. Most of the time, text SE conversations are cumbersome and difficult, but my interlocutor was very sincere and honest.
Nice music.
Thank you.
Hello. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
How are you doing today? I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing good.
Nice to hear you are doing good, my friend. more blessings.
Do you want to talk?
Who did you get to do the voiceover? Like the driver?
How did this start again?
Just some random guy. He was very dramatic, but I like it.
No, it's awesome.
Alright.
I can't tell you how many conversations I have just out of the blue. It's like, hey, how you doing? Okay, good. What's going on?
All right, okay, here we go.
More about blessings?
Yes, my friend. We all need blessings.
What exactly is a blessing?
It's the gifts from God. Health, happiness, love, and courage. So many positive things.
Would you be comfortable if I asked you some questions about why you believe this?
Yes, my friend. Because I think they are the basic of life.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
They are the basic life needs.
How do you know blessings are a basic need of life?
If someone is blessed, you have the basic needs of life. Vice versa.
If someone never heard of God and nobody ever blessed them, can they be alive and well?
Yes, I think if there's life.
Can you tell me what you mean by basic need of life?
Food, clothing, and shelter. That entails happiness, health, love, and courage.
Can someone have all these things but have no belief in God and live in a community where nobody believes in God?
Yes, I believe it's possible, and it's happening.
I'm sorry, I got a little confused. Your reason for your belief that blessings are real is that they provide basic human needs?
When you have basic human needs, you are blessed.
Oh, okay, I see. Regardless if someone blesses you, you are blessed if you have basic needs?
That's how I think it is.
If there was someone who didn't have a house and was living on the street, would you consider them non-blessed?
No, they are blessed in some way. Alive itself is a blessing. I don't get good food and don't have proper shelter, but I'm blessed because there's life.
So just to be alive is to be blessed? It doesn't really matter if all your basic human needs are met?
Yes, that's true. My belief.
I see. Is there a way that we can test it to see if blessings are a real thing? A test we can conduct?
Everyone is blessed in some way, whether they know it or not.
I see. If you were to talk about blessings to someone who has never heard of God or a higher power, and has never heard of blessings before, what do you think they would think of it?
People have different perspectives towards blessings and the way they are blessed.
Of course. Can someone believe that blessings are not a real thing?
No, I don't think so. Anything that comes on one's way is a blessing from God through someone. But some may not know that. That is why they say when you help someone, you get more back in return.
How do we determine that blessings, or in other words, being alive, comes from God?
It is to be contented with whatever comes your way.
I don't understand. Can you explain what you mean?
To accept what comes your way is what's meant for you.
You determine that blessings come from God by accepting what comes your way is meant for you? How does accepting what is meant for you mean blessings come from God?
I believe that anything we have or achieve comes from God, and that is a blessing.
Yes, I understand that. How do you know that is true?
Faith.
I see. Does faith always lead someone to truthful conclusions?
Yes, I believe that.
Can someone have faith that the Egyptian gods are real?
Yes, that can be or is true. People believe in that.
And others can have faith that the Abrahamic God is real? And others can have faith that the Hindu gods are real?
Yes,
All the doctrines are very different. Only one or possibly none can be true, correct?
people have different faith depending from their parents or what they learn or from the society they grew up. That's true.
I see. So at least two of these groups of people are incorrect, and maybe one is correct?
Yes, one must be correct, but I think that is well known by God.
So if these people used faith to come to an incorrect conclusion, how do you know you used faith to come to a correct conclusion?
That is determined by God.
I'm more interested in how you came to your conclusion.
Good.
I think here we may not know. We just have the belief.
If you do not know for sure, should we adjust our beliefs to match what we do know?
What you learn or know and believe in that, it's where you can adjust your belief. Where are you from?
I'm not sure I completely understand what you mean. Do you mean we should only believe in things that we know? If we find that we do not have good evidence for a belief, should we no longer hold that belief?
Not only things that we know. Every day is learning. Like how I'm learning from you.
I'm glad I am helping you learn. I think I've asked enough questions for right now. I am from the United States. Do you have any other questions for me?
What's your belief about blessing? You are blessed to be from the greatest country in the world.
I am unconvinced a God exists. I think it is within possibility, but I do not hold a belief in a God. Because of this, I do not believe blessings exist.
I see. Thank you for your time. You are a good person. We'll talk later. I'm going out to find some food for lunch.
Sounds good. I look forward to another conversation. Can I ask you one more question? I have a YouTube channel and podcast. Would it be okay if I talked about our conversation for one of those episodes?
That's okay with me.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Take care. Enjoy your lunch. One last question I forgot to ask earlier. Has your confidence about blessings changed at all since talking with me?
You're making me think a lot of these days about it.
I understand. I like to make people think, that's for sure.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Fantastic.
That was awesome.
That was
Thank you.
All right.
touched on all the major points almost.
Yeah.
And I just want to know that the narrator is so good. Like,
Yeah.
both of you, actually.
Yeah. That puts a
Yeah,
new
thanks.
perspective on it for me. I've been very much against text, SE with text. I can't stand it. I love the fact that you didn't get bogged down in definitions, because that's my biggest problem. I can spend an hour trying to understand what people mean by the words they use in text, because it's so vague and ambiguous. So I can't stand it. I avoid it. But that was just great because you didn't get bogged down in definitions. It was all epistemology, even though the claim seemed like it was, semantic tautology. It was just defining himself to be correct. It was really good. Loved
Thank
it.
you. Yeah, I try not to even use terms that people may not understand. I just try to use the simplest of language as I can, and I think it works out well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like this conversation, it skimmed across the surface the whole time. Yet, like, you hit all the points, you didn't go too deep, and you just kind of, you went through the whole conversation arc with them, which is probably the best that you can hope for when you're having a text-based conversation with somebody. It's almost like a drive-by. Like, you have one opportunity, unless they're friends and you know them. That's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I liked it as well. At the same time, I thought it would be maybe more optimal to explore another claim, not about the blessings, but about God, or about where the blessings come from. Because from his definition of blessings are mostly anything. Like you get anything in life, you have a life, it's a blessing. So using this definition, it doesn't make just as much sense to ask how do you know if blessings are true or not, because basically he just equates blessings with life. How do we know that life is true? Well, yeah, things like that. So instead I would just go with probably different claim.
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
Yeah, it was a little vague.
I like
All right,
the way you.
Oh,
Sorry, Anthony.
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Anthony. Sorry.
I was going to say, do we have any suggestions for improvement on that? So it sounds like being clearer on the definition of like on some words, you probably do want to be more clear or narrow the claim down tighter So it's not this really broad nebulous thing, but tighten it down more. I was going to suggest that, and I don't know if this is a good or bad suggestion, so take it for what it's worth, but maybe when you're repeating back what you think that they've just said in text, like almost copying and pasting it and putting quotes around it so that they know that you're using their words. Is that too strong? Like, I wonder, I could see maybe that could rub some people the wrong way.
Yeah,
Like
I think
you're using my own words against me or something. But I think I would want to do it to be clear. Like when you say these few sentences or these words, and then follow up with your question.
I think in text, I suggest not just quoting them and putting the quotation marks, but instead to just rephrase it in your own words if you want to get more understanding and if you want to repeat back what they're saying and let them understand that you're understanding them.
Yeah.
Maybe one thing. First, I want to say I love the way you ended it because you didn't drag it on, and you ended it after doing those outsider tests, and that was good. Like, yeah, I think it was a really good time to end it. Maybe, like Anthony said, just narrow down on, confirm that he's defining anything to be a blessing. So you mean anything is a blessing, and then do an outsider test on that. So is it possible that someone could say that non-blessings are everything and define it that way as well? That naturalism is everything, naturalism is life. Is that possible? And then do an outsider test between those two. The way he's defining himself to be correct. Could someone else define themselves to be correct with that semantic tautology? And then do the outsider test. How do we know which one is true if both people are defining themselves to be correct in that way and they're opposite? Maybe, but I liked it. I like the way you did it. So
yeah, thanks for that feedback. That would have been a really interesting route to go down, a question to ask.
And one route I would have gone down is trying to probe for some kind of psychosocial motivations with this claim. It seems like he's using God as a way to make sense of really anything, mainly life, but maybe just existence in general. These abstract ideas, maybe ask questions like, what's the second best way to make sense of life, our existence, and whatever else he's using God to make sense of. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do people who think that they have blessings do they have an advantage over people who don't think this? Might be a good plan of attack or approach.
Yeah, or just why do you think is it important to see the blessings in life, and why is that? What's the difference between seeing them and not seeing?
Yeah, I think that would have been great. Yeah, I agree.
Cool. All right. Next up, we have Mark Solomon's video being reasonable, his channel and podcast. Hopefully this works. It's an hour and 4-minute long video. Do we have specific time codes we want to hit?
I've got to like 8:30, but I'm sure we'll. Oh, you're talking about the video. Never mind. I'll shut up.
I don't have any time codes for it. I didn't even watch it.
I've got some time codes.
You do?
Let's watch the first 10 minutes and then we'll skip around with some time codes.
Okay.
Hopefully this works. All right, here we go.
When you say transgender, what do you mean?
When I say transgender, I mean a person whose identity about themselves does not match the biological sex that they were assigned at birth. In other words, let me give you some definitions first.
Okay.
There's sex or gender. That's what the doctor tells you are, right? Male, female.
Sure.
There's gender identity, which is how you see yourself, how you identify yourself.
Okay.
And then there's gender expression. Gender expression is how you dress, how you present yourself to other people, what clothes you may wear. That's your gender expression, or even how you may talk. So with those three terms, I was assigned male at birth,
Okay.
but I have not identified as a male as long as I can remember. Since I was 4 years old, I remember identifying as female.
Okay. Thank you. So what is the belief associated with you being transgender?
The gender assigned to us at birth should not dictate who we are.
The gender assigned to us at birth should not dictate who we are. At some point, I might change the belief that you're discussing in the description of it, so to make sure that we are talking about it in a way that, to me, when I hear the word should, it's more of a value judgment about the way the world should be, as opposed to a belief being either true or false.
Okay, well, let's take out should.
Okay.
We can take that.
Should we
that's-
try to move from should to is claims? Is claims are a little bit easier to adjudicate empirically.
That's a
but
good
should-
question.
Yep.
I would say that both are possible. And I can give you an example. One could say, let's go with a more simple example. We should have capital punishment, for example. It could be a claim, right? And we could, if we wanted to rephrase it into something like, if we have capital punishment, we will have less crimes or more crimes. And this is just an is statement. Whatever you think about it, it will happen either this way or that way. So that's one way to do it. But the other way to go is to just leave the claim we should enforce the law about capital punishment, and we could ask the confidence for that and stuff like that. And what it allows us to do is, besides talking about the consequences that we would like to see, also to talk about other possible consequences. Like, for example, you're saying that this will reduce the amount of crimes, right? And that's your main goal. Can you think of other possible consequences that will follow this? Can you think of some drawbacks, some negative consequences besides the positive ones that we've just talked about? So, yeah.
Outcomes.
Yeah, both ways I think are possible. You can leave it as should and proceed with weighing pros and cons against each other, or you could rephrase it at the very beginning into an is statement and just make it easy. I think it depends on what both of you want to discuss.
I'm a little impressed that he picked up on that so quickly. Not like as a slight against Mark, but like this noticing early on that this could be a preference as opposed to a fact claim. And let's tighten up the claim a little bit before we go any further. That's a really smart thing to do when you're doing SE, I think, because you want to make sure that you understand the claim. And ideally, I think it is a fact claim about reality, that it's not just a whim or a preference or an opinion. Because in my view, that's the strength of SE, I think, is that like when you're exploring how sure you are that something is factually true that applies to everybody, not just something to myself. You can use SE to explore preferences and opinions, and I don't know if that's where this is going or not, but I think there's probably some value into having this conversation right at the start. Are we talking about something that applies to everybody or something that you want to be the case because it's your personal preference? So kudos to Mark for catching that early on, I think.
Mm-hmm. Also, I noted that she said what we've been assigned at birth should not dictate who we are, or doesn't dictate who we are. And I thought, why say who we are if we just defined things like gender expression? So I just translated in my head who we are into gender expression, because otherwise I just don't know what we're talking about. But yeah, we'll probably see it later in the talk. So I mean, I would just ask when I heard this, who we are, I would just ask, are you talking, when you say who we are, about gender expression, or maybe about something else as well?
Yeah, there's always a way to bring it to epistemology. So we start off with this claim, a should claim, and then we break it down to consequences, which is another claim, a claim that there are consequences. Either way, like Rom said. But then we can talk about the reasons why we believe that these are consequences. And now we're talking about things that we've observed as facts from the past. And we're talking about, well, this is a factual claim now. So now we can explore the epistemology. Does that evidence from the past, has that resulted in those consequences? And how do we know? And are the methods that we're using, how are we checking that they're reliable ways to know that that is a fact as a consequence, right? So you can move it into the epistemology that way. And that can adjust the confidence at the high level by looking a little bit deeper. So, this is where I think street epistemology applies everywhere. It applies for all things. It can, if we can.
Yeah, you're ultimately talking about models of past events, or models that would imply future predictions, and these are about consequences with values and stuff like that. All right, well, keep going.
That our gender assigned to us at birth does not dictate who we are.
Okay.
Does that make
Yes.
better sense? Good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
They both made sense.
I'm malleable.
They both made sense, but it
You have a
helps to
good point.
talk about it, I
Okay.
think, better when we're talking about it, whether a belief is true or not. Right. Okay. How do you know your belief is true?
I know my belief is true, not only from my personal experience of being transgender, but also from a great deal of research that is not only scientific, but also personable research of other people who have also felt this way. So it's based on three things: my experience, scientific research, and stories and testimonials of other people through support groups or through reading that have felt the exact same way that I do.
Personal experience,
Yes.
scientific research,
Yes.
and stories of other people or situations you've come in contact with other people,
Yes.
the personal experience of other people.
Of other people.
Okay. Of those three things, what would you say is the primary reason why you believe the belief?
The primary reason I believe the belief is because I know what happened to me. I know how I feel. The science and the other people's testimony, those were just supporting my thesis or my belief. Those were just in support of it. But I know I have felt this way since I was 4.
So the primary reason why you believe the belief is personal experience.
It's personal experience. It's what happened to me.
Okay. What do you think if someone asked you, is personal experience a reliable way to know whether something is objectively real and true?
I would say no, not necessarily.
Wow.
Ideally, when we're talking about ways of knowing, like, for example, personal experience, I always wonder, whenever I ask that question, the reliability question, is it in relation to the way of knowing and the claim itself? Because these things, it depends on the claim, what kind of evidence is good or not, or not. So I would just want to make sure it's, for this claim in particular, is personal experience
Right.
either a reliable way or the best way, either what I would ask.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and to me, it's still a little bit difficult to distinguish between what Anthony has already mentioned, between whether it's mostly a preferential claim, which is also fine, of course. Like, I would like it to be this way, or people would like it to be this way, versus a factual claim, which could be tested. And so yeah, I just a little bit confused still at this point in the conversation. I would have asked probably what that research was talking about. What did they research specifically? People's opinions, or maybe some biology, just to get a better understanding of what we're talking about. And it's a common thing to distinguish between preferential claim and factual claim. And yeah, I think it's useful to just think in terms of that and to understand for yourselves which track are you taking.
I would say no, not necessarily. I think there needs to be other data that supports that. We all have different experiences. My experience is true to me, but it is true to me only. I cannot speak for other people. So no, my personal experience does not alone support my belief
Yes.
that your
I see.
biological sex defines your gender identity.
I see what you're saying. How about this? Regarding your belief that your biological sex does not define your gender identity, what, on a scale from 1 to 7, first of all, how strongly do you feel about this belief?
I feel a 7.
Okay. Is there something that you could learn, do you think, that would even make you more confident about the belief? That I know you're already at a 7, and that's pretty high, maybe as high as it could go, but is there something that would even make you more confident about that belief that you could learn from yourself or someone else or research or something that would make you say to yourself, you know, that belief is even stronger than I originally thought?
I would believe that continued scientific research would help support that. I believe anytime you invoke science, you're getting to the truth of the matter. It's not based on your faith or your experiences necessarily. It's based on research, data, experimentation. When science accompanies a belief, I believe there's a strong reason to also feel stronger about your belief due to the fact that science has researched it. In other words, just as an example, faith didn't give us the vaccines. It was science that gave us the vaccines. The idea that the world revolves around the earth was based in faith, not on science. Science eventually proved that. So science is continuing to evolve. And as science continues to evolve, for me, I see more and more proof that this is, in fact, science. It is based on scientific fact. So it could be a large experiment. Right now, the experiments we have are based on samples because it's not on a census, right? Are you transgender or not? It's based on scientific research that takes samples.
Are we now discussing the claim transgender people exist, or like transgender is a real phenomenon that humans can go through? Or are we still talking about the original claim about what dictates who we are?
That'd be a good question. Is what is the study that you're thinking about
Yes.
studying
that's
exactly?
Yes, exactly my question. I wanted to ask at this point, could you give me a good example of scientific proof of your claim?
Yeah.
And based upon samples, the scientific belief is 0.6, anywhere from 0.6 to 1% of people are transgender. Now, there are a lot of people who are transgender who remain closeted. So they may or may not even provide the truth. So we don't really know where everyone is. But there's approximately 1.4 million of us that identify as transgender.
Well, that was really well said. And for one thing, I can tell why you're in Toastmasters. That was really, I really understood exactly where you're coming from.
Toastmasters.
Yeah.
That's good.
Is it the claim that whatever that percentage is of transgender people exist or identify as transgender? And is there a difference between that? Can someone identify as transgender and be mistaken?
At this point, what they're talking about is a little bit confusing because, I was also thinking that they were discussing the initial claim, but now she mentioned people being transgender and how many people are transgender. So it's interesting.
It might be good to just do a summary recap at this point. This is the claim. Is this what the main reasons are? Is this the claim that's being supported here? And these are your reasons. Correct me if I'm hearing this wrong. Great. But I want to say I love his style though, like the rapport, and I love how he asks,
amazing.
1 to 7, and someone gives a 7, and he still goes with what could increase your confidence, but he covers himself. Like, you can't go any higher than a 7 at 7 out of 7. But if it could, I like.
Well, it's good that he's giving
I
her
like Mark's
permission to change too. Like, okay, you're at a 7. That's really high. I wonder if there's something stronger that you would accept to.
Yeah, I love his style.
To budge.
Yeah. It's warming on me. I like Mark's style.
Yeah. And as an aside, like the tech setup is super minimal and really nice. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
That was really, I really understood exactly where you're coming from. Thank you. So it sounds like like compared to me who can't talk, it sounds like that if you were to become more confident about your belief, the way that would happen is that if you learn some more research, some more studies were done, I assume more objective kinds of research was done, that pointed to that belief being true, you believe it even stronger.
Yes.
Let me turn around.
Okay, I figured you would.
Is there something that you would learn, maybe, that would make your belief less strong than a 7?
If there were scientific evidence, perhaps that said that there's really no gender identity is not related. Gender identity actually is related to biological sex. Here's a study that shows that. That will not change my belief in what I have experienced, but it may tell me, well, maybe there's people out there who might be thinking they're transgender and maybe they're not. I am open to any kind of scientific research as long as it's based in scientific methods.
Just so I understand what you're saying, you're telling me that there is a certain scenario where your belief could become stronger, but there's not a scenario where your belief could become weaker.
There is for other people, but not for me. I still know my experience.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So if science were to say, well, there's no such difference between biological sex and gender identity, which there hasn't been a study of that, but let's say one did come out, I would say, that's very interesting. I should take that into consideration. But for me, that will not.
Yep.
I'm interested now, how could that be the case? Like, what should we research in order to say that sex, that there is no such thing as transgender or different gender identity, or that it is like completely independent or dependent on the sex? Yeah, I'm just curious what could do exactly in that study, in such a study.
When someone says yes for others but not for me because of my personal experience, my confidence couldn't come down, I like to throw in question 24 from the SE survey. Is it possible that some of my beliefs are untrue? And any of the beliefs, is it possible that any of them might be untrue? And if that's the case, does that mean that there are beliefs you think are true but are not true? And that helps people to reflect on, is it really realistic to think that there's no way I should be 100% certain in something? So I find that's helpful sometimes.
Can I repeat back what I think I heard her say? I think I heard her say that a scientific study could come out and show that that the sex that you were born with is your gender identity. If there was a study that showed that those two were inseparable, she would acknowledge it perhaps because the scientific method was used for it, but it wouldn't be enough to convince her that she's mistaken about her conclusion, that her sex that it was identified at birth is different than how she sees herself. So it wouldn't faze her. And I think it sounded like she was saying a study like that could be useful because maybe there are some situations where people think that they're different from their biological sex at birth. And in reality, they're not. Like maybe there's still some value, but for her, it wouldn't impact her. Is that what I'm hearing her say?
That's what I heard.
Probably. Yeah.
That's
And
what
at
I
the
heard,
same
yeah.
time, it sounds like the study could not could not show what we're talking it could possibly show, because even her own experience and the experience of other transgender people just shows that they don't feel like their gender identity is the same.
They're the evidence right there telling us that I don't see myself this way. Like,
So I'm thinking there is nothing to research here, because if we want to just to make a poll, okay, we've done it. We know that there are people who are identifying themselves like that.
Yeah, it comes down to the original claim. Like, is this a claim about consequences, and what are the reasons really for it? Is it because harm will flow if we're forcing people to identify with the gender they're assigned at birth? Is there harm that will flow from that? Psychological harm? I mean, are we creating dissonance in people because they don't feel that way? So what are the real reasons for it?
Yes, I like the word harm. Harm is about consequences. So this is where I would probably also go in this conversation, because we're talking about something that's self-evident so far. Some people do not identify with the sex they've been assigned at birth, or with gender they've been assigned at birth. This is self-evident fact. We don't need research for that. So I'm not sure what research we're talking about. But what we can talk about,
and there's one right here. We just do one example, the one right here. Yeah.
So instead, what we can talk about, and what question could we ask at this point, is: are you suggesting something should be done about it? What specifically?
And that's where the belief can be explored with epistemology.
Solutions, talking about what is the proposed solution to this problem, and then you can be essaying whether the solution meets the need.
Exactly. And what consequences this has, pros and cons. Again, consequences.
Does this mean, like, when newborn babies are born, we should not put male or female on birth certificates? Or it should just be, is that the policy solution? Do we check in at like 12 or 18? Is that when you're getting, does the state even need to be involved in keeping a record of your sex?
Yeah, lots of things we could do, starting obviously with just
I'd be curious to hear. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear what a proposal is. Like, what do you propose that we do with birth certificates? Are there certain fields that are on there now that we should leave off? Should we be adding new fields? Should we leave some of them blank until the child is old enough to be able to answer some of the questions on there? Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I skipped forward a little bit to another point in the video that there was one claim that seemed interesting. All right, here we go.
Is a zero correlation between them?
Let me go back a second.
Yeah, I haven't seen this.
We should examine.
I was going to say, I haven't watched this. I'm hoping it's not a whole SE conversation exploring how she could be so sure that she's female, even though she was identified as male on her birth certificate. I hope it doesn't go that way this whole time. I didn't watch this.
Yeah, because
can we give some spoiler alerts? Is that where it's going, or does it shift into a different, more interesting area?
It does go down into like some pretty fundamental areas of epistemology and science in general.
Because I don't know, should we use street epistemology to explore people's identities? Or is that kind of what we're doing with beliefs? If beliefs are tied to a person's identity, is that what we're doing? Like, why would we want to draw the line, perhaps, if that's what we're exploring? I don't know. Maybe there is some sort of line at some point where you don't question certain things because it's about who the person thinks that they are.
Well, you could say that about pretty much any belief. Like a Christian might say, like, "Hey, this is part of who I am," and you can't question it. I don't think you can draw that line.
People can be identified with COVID at the moment. So the way I'm seeing it is, you've got a belief about something that you've observed, a singular observation you've observed, that you've felt, that you've perceived yourself, and then you've got generalized statements. So a statement that's a generalization about the world. And if it's a statement that's a generalization about the world, that's more suited to a street epistemology conversation. If someone's just saying, well, this is what I experienced, but I'm not drawing any generalized conclusions from it, well, then the conversation sort of ends there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Belief more. When we're saying that they are not related, that there is a zero correlation between them?
I think it's gender and sex. I think that's what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would not say that. I would say it's an impossible question to answer. And here's why. Think about when you were born. If you can remember back to where you were a little baby, think about looking up and seeing what color your room was.
Yeah.
Think about the onesie you were in.
Right.
What color was that?
Right.
Think about as you grew older, let's say you went to a birthday party and the girls were all wearing party dresses and the boys were probably dressed in a shirt and slacks. Think about all the ways that you did not get to decide your gender identity. And you weren't really given the choice because all of society told you that you are to act like a boy, you're to dress like a boy, you're to have these feelings as a boy.
Right.
And if you step outside of those feelings,
I see.
you're going to be corrected.
Now we're talking about a model of how human beings get their gender. I don't know if it was gender identity or just how they feel in general in relation to being a certain gender. That can be a model to explore potentially. What causes that? Is it merely socialization, all nurture, or is there some natures, or is it both? That's another route I'd like to go down.
Yep.
Yeah. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking about my own personal experience.
Yes.
And my own personal experience probably aligns with what you're saying, that my gender identity has corresponded with my gender. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, gender
Yes.
was placed on us. Gender identity was placed on all of us.
And in my personal experience, I've honestly, because probably I'm in the majority, I've never thought about it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
That's an interesting thing to me. Gender was placed on us. I'd love to clarify what that means.
I think now we're sort of getting to what you mentioned earlier, Reid. There's really a claim there that maybe we shouldn't be assigned the gender at birth because it can interfere with people's free choice to choose their gender identity. Maybe that's what's at the heart of it. This idea that gender was placed on us, and this idea of, are you saying that we shouldn't be assigned male, female at birth and wait a period of time for people to work it out? Or what's the actual generalized statement about the world that comes from all of this?
I think she's hinting at harm here that, if you raise people who are transgender and they just don't realize it yet because they're not old enough to verbalize it to their parents, that can cause real harm.
Mm.
Essentially forcing a child who sees themselves as a female wearing male clothes and playing game, doing all the boy games that all the boys are doing. And when the girls are over there and they'd rather be over there, and feeling like you don't belong. It's a real sensitive topic, and again, kudos to Mark for, I think, making her feel heard and comfortable. Like, just as you pause that, she was smiling, really, like she felt heard and understood.
Yeah.
That's really important. I know I have a good friend. Well, he's not a good friend. I have a friend who's married and they have a baby, and they're raising it as a baby. It's a baby. So they don't say she or he. They intentionally avoid saying pronouns and dressing the child in a certain way. And if somebody says, "Oh, he or she is so pretty," they'll correct them and say, "We're waiting for them to decide what gender they are." So there are people who are being very cautious about pre-assigning gender identities to their children. And I think it'll be really interesting to see, is that going to be a more well-adjusted child if they grow up, regardless of how they grow up and self-identify gender-wise?
Yeah.
Will they be a more kind, compassionate, loving person? Are there harms involved? But these
That
are
would be very interesting.
essentially that are playing out right now in real time.
Should we do that with all children? Could be a claim.
Maybe, or there's probably some simple things that we can do that aren't quite that, like, I might even call that extreme. maybe, but it's interesting. I support what they're doing. I'm fascinated by it, and I'm tempted to say, like, has your child identified yet? I'm really curious. Like, at what point do they say, "Mommy, I'm a girl. I want to wear a dress"? And then do you then switch and you drop the they stuff, and then you go to that? So yeah, I'm kind of interested how all that plays out with them.
Yeah. I'll skip forward a bit. Another interesting claim.
Can have an excessive wash of estrogen
Right.
in the child when it's born.
Right. Okay. So this is a belief you have,
Yes.
and you're telling me that it's based on personal experience, but if you really want to know why your belief is true, I think you're telling me that you're relying on the science,
Yes.
or you're relying on the personal experience.
I'm relying on a combination of all three. I do not believe that one person's personal experience defines the truth. I do not. I think it takes, again, scientific studies. It takes testimonials of other people. There's a lot of things that have contributed to my growth in this belief.
Okay.
Because when I was born in the 60s and grew up in the 70s,
Yeah,
I could have no belief such as this. I had no idea.
I see.
And science didn't really either. We were just known as either, mentally ill or transsexuals or transvestites.
Right.
And nobody really knew.
And related back to personal experience,
Sure.
if Linda is sitting next to you,
Okay.
and Linda has not had that experience,
Right.
and she doesn't think it's true because she does not have that experience that it is true, what would we say about Linda's belief that that is not a true belief?
I would say to Linda, just because you don't have that belief doesn't mean it's not true. Or just because you feel that way doesn't mean it's not true.
And how would you show Linda that?
I would show Linda that by showing her scientific data. I would show her statistics that show that there is a percentage of people out here that your gender identity is not based completely on biological sex. There's plenty of evidence to show that. Just as the same as if, let's say, that I were gay, and Linda said, "Well, I don't believe in people being gay because I'm not gay." But you can't deny that there are, in fact, gay people, and there's studies that show there are people who have that preference throughout their entire lives.
That's a great analogy that clarifies things, what the claim is about, I think. That's good. Let's move forward a bit to 28 something.
Before we go forward, I noticed one thing. At the beginning of the conversation, she said her primary reason for her belief was personal experience. And just now she said personal experience does not determine truth. So I don't know how I would ask her about that, but
I think what she's thinking is that she herself would be the data that would appear in a study. So if there was a meta study and transgendered people were interviewed, they'd be able to give their stories, and then those stories would serve as data. I think that's what she's saying.
Oh, okay.
It's a difference between making a claim about a population and a difference between making a claim about an individual human. We can make claims that within this population of all humans, some subset experience a gender identity that is different from what they were assigned at birth.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between that claim and, I forgot her name right here. Linda? No, not
Linda's the fiction.
The fiction person. Yeah, but she's sitting here. How do we determine if she is transgender herself individually? And the method, there's two different claims.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Because she may be proposing culture-wide changes to account for this view that she has. And if that's the case, then the stakes are much higher than I want to be seen as a female. So if she's going beyond that and saying we need a cultural shift and change the way we raise our children to how we fill out birth certificates, then that sort of that makes it more that affects more people, perhaps, and that elevates it more into the discourse as something needing to be explored, perhaps. Not sure.
Let's go forward to like 28 something. I think there's something interesting here. Yeah, 28. Yeah, now we're getting into gender norms, I think, around 2850.
You red hair, but you cannot be a redhead the rest of your life. You must dye your hair. Of course, we don't tell people that.
Right.
But we do tell people, even as a child, I expressed a desire to do feminine things. I was told, no, you don't get to do that. That's not how it works.
Right.
And so we're forcing, again, our gender norms on other people.
Yeah.
On everybody. And for most people, it works fine. For you, it worked fine. It worked fine. You're happy who you are.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, yeah, I love Dave Chappelle's joke.
So what I'm hearing from that is it's related to the moral foundation of liberty. Like society oppresses some subset of human beings because of these cage of norms, these social norms that are embedded in culture. So she's appealing to a sense of liberty, I think.
Unwittingly oppressing others, maybe. Like we may not be aware that we're doing it.
Yeah.
He says, you know, and he gives transgender people a hard time. And he said, you know, the thing I like about transgender people is at least they figured out what was messing them up.
You know? Yeah, and so you know, sometimes I'm
And let's keep going. It's around 40, and there's something's interesting here. Yeah, this is interesting.
You're saying my objective.
Yes, that's
belief.
my objective truth, because I can't make you believe. And again, it's a belief about myself that is always going to be subjective.
I'm just trying to understand how personal beliefs, personal truths are objective. To me, that's a paradox in my mind. I'm really trying to understand it, you know, and maybe I'm not. And we could possibly be using different language to talk about things. That's very possible.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
like
trying to understand how.
I understand.
Go ahead.
I understand. When I say objective truth about me, it's because I know, in fact, how I feel about something. But
And
I am not
counting that you feel that way.
I understand
am not.
that.
Yes.
I am not going to be a person who tells someone else that their belief in something is not objective, because to them it is. I don't think anybody should tell someone, well, that's not really objective. I don't think you should tell anyone that. I don't think you should tell a person who's gay. I don't think you should tell a person who believes in worshiping Buddy Holly or yes, I did listen to your I don't believe that, because our beliefs are both subjective and objective. To the person who is going through it, it is an objective truth to me.
I just heard his GoPro beep too. Like once you have GoPros or whatever, you hear that little beep. I think maybe his camera died. He probably noticed one of his cameras died or something. Battery died. It seems like we're in completely different territory here. Now we're sort of talking about this idea between objective truth and subjective truth, and at what point do we listen to people who we disagree with? Kind of get the sense that maybe this is where this is going, but in the context of her identity. And like I'm kind of wishing maybe the identity stuff was set aside and it was just like, okay, I got this box of Tic Tacs here. Let's talk about objective truth and if we really should care about what people believe or not. But I think this conversation runs the risk of her thinking that he's denying her identity. And that's something we don't want to do regardless of the claim that we're exploring with anybody. Is we don't want them to think that we don't respect them, or we think they're lying, or they're deceived, or anything, they're stupid, or anything like that.
It might be interesting to move the conversation to the idea of, well, how might this play out in terms of public policy? Can someone change their identity and decide later to change their identity? And then how might that affect public funding, participation in the Olympics, all these sort of things? Like, expand it out and just see what are your thoughts on that. And because at the moment it looks like we're talking about, this is my personal preference, so that's my experience, that's objectively true for me, which is true. Like, if I like, everyone that knows me knows that I like chocolate and I have an addiction to chocolate. That's my subjective personal taste. But if you put me under an MRI machine, you scan my brain, you will see all the endorphins light up as I eat chocolate. It is objectively true as well. Even though I may lie about it, you may not be able to test it unless you put me in an MRI. It's my subjective preference, and that there is an objective truth about that. But then the conversation doesn't really go anywhere unless you start talking about, how does this impact you in the world? And how does this impact other people in the world? And how does this impact policy? That's where it might be interesting to take it.
Yeah, what I'm hearing her say is that there is some confusion, I think, between objective and subjective truth. She says, when I say objective truth about me, it's because I know, in fact, how I feel about something. So the way she's checking the claim that she's transgender is she just consults her feelings, and that confirms that she's transgender. But when she gives that fact to someone else, the way she feels, the reason we're getting from her is a subjective feeling from her. And is she claiming something about herself? Does that count as objective evidence of her, or does that count as subjective evidence?
Good question. It's factually true that she feels like she was assigned the wrong sex at birth. It's incompatible with her gender identity. That's factually true. In her mind, it's factually true that she was misgendered at birth.
Yeah, if she's not flying or playing with like some kind of weird con game.
Yes, like it's factually true that that's the case.
And there's objective truth about that. That is a fact about the world, that's how she feels. So even though that's her subjective perception, it's also an objective fact about the world that this human being in this spot feels that way.
I'd say that instead of asking whether it should count as objective truth or not, we could ask ourselves whether this belief has some underlying epistemology that would be interesting to uncover. That's what we're aiming at, right? And so when we're talking about identities, preferences, or anything else subjective, by default, I'm thinking, well, it's all good and fine, and you can call it truth. I don't mind that, and I don't think it's wrong, but there's no epistemology behind it. It's only you who decide whether you identify yourself with this or that. So it's all good by me. So instead, I would think about what could be more interesting to discuss here, and probably public policies, things like that.
Yeah, because can you imagine having a conversation about, well, how can we test whether your subjective truth is objectively true? Maybe you're deceiving yourself, and you don't want to have a conversation about it.
I know
you could do that, but why? Why?
No, why? And it's I wouldn't go there.
Yeah. So I would probably just easily agree to the initial claim. Yes, of course, there are transgender people. Of course, people are identifying themselves with sex or a gender they have not been assigned at birth. And you are one of them. Of course, I believe you. So what should we do about it?
Yeah.
How do we tell if we're mistaken? If someone was lying that they're transgender, and we wanted to know if it was actually the case that someone was transgender, how could we know if we're mistaken? If the only method we can go with is their testimony,
we would never know.
We would never know.
Yeah, you just assume. Yeah, why do you even care? You can just as easily explore epistemology, whether they're lying or not.
One day, maybe science will be able to tell that there's certain correlations. Maybe chemical makeups, certain activity in the brain that correlates with people feeling and identifying in certain ways. If that's the case, you'd have a way of testing it. But apart from that, you can't. So why have a conversation about it unless you're talking about how public policy can play out? That makes it more interesting, I feel.
Yeah. What I'm worried is that this is going to slide into a discussion about why we should care what other people think when they make a claim. Like if we, I don't know where this is going, but I maybe it's sliding in that direction where he's going to push her about that beliefs really do matter, and we should care what other people think is true. Is that where maybe this is going? I think it is.
It goes into more of like, talking about truth in general, objective truth versus subjective truth. And this is one quote that's interesting as well. Okay. Objective truths were a lot of times subjective truths. That's another interesting claim.
That is the objective truth that you believe. But we have come to find out, and science has to give room for this, that we find out that objective truths were a lot of times subjective truths.
Right. And so I could live back in the day and believe, that the sun circles around the earth, and I could believe that it's an objective truth, but it doesn't sound like it was it sounds like I was wrong. It sounds like the objective truth is the opposite.
Right. We're constantly rediscovering the world.
So it was a subjective belief.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, we met there.
I don't think that was right. I think it's the people in the past were just sincerely mistaken about an objective truth claim in the past. It doesn't, just because people were wrong doesn't make it now subjective. It's just they were sincerely mistaken.
They were mistaken about the objective truth of the matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And
so I think maybe we're using the words objective differently.
Right. They're hard terms to define because, and here we could get into saying there are no absolute truths because we're constantly rediscovering new ideas about the world. What's objective now may not be objective.
Understand how I believe about the sun circling the earth or the earth circling the sun, how that has anything to do with the objective truth about that answer.
Because what I was saying was that an objective truth is a way that you can look at the world and invoke science to determine that it's an objective truth. So we realize that, in fact, the universe does not revolve around the earth. Our planets
so it wasn't an objective truth.
But we thought it was at the time. And we can come up with current beliefs about that, too.
Yeah.
That weren't correct. So I guess what I'm saying is, do you consider objective an absolute truth?
Yes. I consider when I'm thinking objective truth, I think of absolute universal truth that what I think about it, what they thought about in the past, what they think about in the future, I could think about it incorrectly or correctly. It doesn't matter. That truth is true.
I would disagree. I don't think objective truth and absolute truth are equivalent. I would say no one gets the final say about anything in science. Absolutely. It's always open to revision, but we do still call it objective truth because of its ability to be tested and withstood attempts at falsification. That's what objective is about.
I guess it would be much easier to just say provisional truth instead of all that.
It's just the colloquial way that we use the words like truth and knowledge. Like no one's demonstrated a way to actually know truth with 100% certainty, but we use it as oh yeah, he knows that, or yeah, I know that's true. It's just our colloquial way of using it. Yeah.
I keep talking about this for another minute, and we'll just keep wrapping it up here.
What happens when you're presented with evidence that goes against your objective truth? What do? Do you ignore it?
The objective truth is, it doesn't matter what I think about it, whether I'm presented evidence or not presented evidence. If I'm presented evidence that the sun circles the earth, or if I'm presented evidence that the earth circles the sun, it doesn't matter to the objective truth. I can think about it any way I want.
But you don't know all the truths.
I don't know.
You don't know all the truths.
I don't know. So it doesn't change whether that thing is objectively true or not.
But it's
true.
only objective to you because that's the truth you know. And it's just the same as it's considered an objective truth that women are bad at math and science and men are better. A lot of people had that objective truth, but it turns out that's not true.
But so it wasn't, and it was never an objective truth.
Do we ever have an objective truth?
Whether the sun circles the earth or the earth circles the sun, do you not think that there is an objective truth?
There is now. What I'm saying is it depends on the time period. I'm using
Ron
that
loves
as an
this
example we live in a time period now where we do not
period change that.
because
I'm really trying to understand.
No, what I'm
What they're getting at here, this is actually a very serious problem in science and
yeah.
epistemology. This brings up for me like the structure of scientific revolutions by Kuhn. Models about reality can change in very profound ways, going from Newtonian physics to Einsteinian physics. These are profound changes in our understanding of reality and how things work. So, and this could happen in the future again. We could be very wrong about our current models of reality that could vastly change in the future because we have unknowns out there.
Yep.
So that could change, and we could be sincerely mistaken about how reality works at this point in time.
Yeah, these words of knowledge, like I'm still struggling to come up with a definition for knowledge, and I haven't seen it defined well anywhere. And so when people use the word, this is a truth that we know, and things like that, you could spend hours trying to work out what do you mean by knowledge, and is that the definition we should be adopting? And so I'm not sure whether conversations around working out what knowledge means can be that fruitful. They're more.
No, I'd avoid it. I would recommend sticking with your confidence that it's factually true.
Yeah,
how
because
sure
that's all.
Are you? Don't get into belief and knowledge and all that other stuff. It's how sure are you on this gradient that you're right, that you're correct.
The only exception I find is that it helps to acknowledge that, I love what Reid was saying, that there are always embedded assumptions in these universal statements that we make about reality. There's unknown unknowns. We're assuming the past will continue into the future the way it always has. So therefore, there's no 100% certainty. Knowledge is always provisional. And that helps get people on board with, well, the discussion should really be about how can we be justified in our confidence level given that we can't have 100% certainty about these universal statements. And then we can shift it, to justification. And that's where the conversation really should be.
I like that idea of starting with this idea of being open to being wrong and seeing it, like recognizing I probably can't ever really know for sure that this is true, but how can I kind of get close? And then using that as the model for the rest of your life and all of your interactions, and being humble with what you can say that you're sure about or not sure about.
Yeah. And do we have good reasons for using the methods that we're using to get us as close as we can? Which reasons are better than others, and what's our epistemology behind that?
Yeah.
Yep. Let me see what else. This is interesting. Maybe one more quote or two. Here we go.
I believe in the
But
tooth
it
fairy.
wasn't an objective truth.
But you believe that it was.
So
but you're saying that was your absolute truth when in fact it wasn't.
But the objective truth, how could I have an objective truth about something that's not objectively true?
That's my point. You did not know because you didn't have all the facts, but you believed it to be objective. Just as 20 years from now, there will be beliefs you say, you know what? I thought that was an objective truth, but it turns out it's not, because you're saying objective truth is absolute truth. And we don't know that. We don't know that until science comes along and tells us.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, man.
Even still, with science coming along and telling us stuff, that doesn't make it absolute and unquestionable.
Yeah. Just seems to be true. Yeah. Because it stood up to checking and falsification, and so therefore it seems to be true because it's eliminated as many assumptions as possible. It's now got less assumptions. It's stood up to falsifying, and so it seems to be true. But I feel for Mark right now because I've had these conversations about truth, and I felt exactly the way I'm seeing the way that Mark feels right now.
We just need simpler language. And I think this came up in another video where maybe Rom suggested it. Like we get so wrapped up in objective and subjective and truth. If we just talk about simple everyday examples, that usually is what it takes to suss these things out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we need any of that truth, knowledge. I just leaving it out of the conversation whenever possible. Just the answer is simple. We don't need those. We only need what works, what we can predict and what we can test. That's it.
Some people might need it. Like, for me, I needed to explore those ideas to be able to be confident that street epistemology is really good and it's the way to go. And so I've had to spend
deeply
hours,
in a philosophical sense, right?
Yes.
To just think about it.
Understanding about these ideas about truth, knowledge, fallibilism. If I didn't explore that, then I'd sort of be still wondering, right? So I had to spend the hours. And some people are like that. Everyone's different personality traits. Some people are just thinkers and like to, go into the philosophy. Other people are just, don't give me that bullshit. I want to go straight to the practical stuff. Everyone's different. But
Pierce, feel free to jump in here too.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I noticed that the conversation got a little bit heated in the end, right? The emotions got a little bit high, but it's okay, of course, because the rapport was so high in the beginning. So Mark could afford to spend a little bit of it, and I think they still were in a friendly discussion.
Yeah, it seems like they're both enjoying it, even though they're frustrated. It seems like Mark's more frustrated than she is, which is that normal? Does the SEer usually get more frustrated than the other conversation partner?
We're all human.
Usually,
It
seems like that's the biggest challenge, isn't it? Is managing your own frustration.
Yeah. When I feel strongly about something because it can impact me. If I'm talking to someone I'm not getting the vaccine for COVID, that irritates me. It's like, I'm sick of lockdowns. Just get the 70% vaccination rate so we don't have to, it's hard to get rid of those feelings and do an essay on that. So if you're identified with it yourself, it can be difficult.
Especially when you take it as a badge of honor or pride of like, wow, I had this really great understanding talk where we made progress. And if it doesn't happen, or if it goes sideways or opposite of what you're attempting to try to achieve, then that could just ramp up the frustration too.
They basically keep arguing about objective truth and subjective truth for the next 10 minutes, and then they wrap it up. And Mark says, we'll definitely need a part 2. So I look forward to part 2, and hopefully, Mark, you can listen to this, and then we can chat as well in the Discord, and we'll get a game plan for next time where we should go.
And somebody was mentioning about like needing female representation in SE. I think it was Cindy Liu made the comment. Maybe you can put it up. But it says, we need female representation in street epistemology. Don't worry. I'm working toward it as fast as I reasonably can dictate my time. Totally agree. I think we have like geographic diversity. Like we've got a guy in Russia and Australia, right? Yeah, there's people around the world, Germany,
cultural
that are
diversity,
doing this. And actually, I've seen females do SE. There's been quite a few that pass through. And even upload content and that type of thing. Even transgender women.
Yeah, we had one trans woman. SE.
At least
we know a lot of females. Just maybe we don't know any that have YouTube channels that we could review.
Yeah, so they're likely out there. They're just not visible, which is kind of a cop out. Now that I say it out loud, but it'd be awesome to see more females, women, whatever you want to call them. I just want to see more people doing this. I don't really care what you look like or
people who identify as female.
Yeah, you probably be really good at SE, and you might have some strengths that, like maybe you're better at staying calm than a guy typically would. I'm just talking in generalities here. Might be some strengths.
Just men and women have more in common than difference anyway. So just different individual people works for me.
Yeah. As far as I know, there are no barriers to entry, and if there are, let us know so that we can try to knock them out of your way.
Yep. All right. So cool. Yeah, that was another good SE review show. Any announcements or anything to say about SE in general?
I like SE.
You got the shirt to prove it. Or demonstrate it to a high degree of confidence. I mean, we're working on the course. We've kind of slowed down a little bit. We have these multiple modules that are being written. It's taxing to write it and then have these side discussions to figure out how to write it. And so we go a little forward, then we take these little breaks, and then we kind of lurch forward a little bit. But ultimately, the course that we're putting together should be really useful for people who want to learn what we're doing above and beyond watching videos and watching the review videos, actually getting your hands dirty and learning how to do it. And so I'm super excited about that. I also I have my third talk tomorrow with a close family friend who is just really insistent that I use street epistemology to explore her Catholic religious beliefs. So I'm doing that over Zoom.
Wow.
And I think I might start uploading some videos to a second channel. Just keep an eye out for that. Something a little different.
Ooh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Something from the things from the vault that I probably wouldn't want to put them on my regular channel, but I think I still want to kind of get them out there. So that's what I got going on. What do you guys have going on?
I'd love to review your old stuff with your new stuff. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah,
Get your views on it.
I would like to. Honestly, for almost every video that's on my channel, I think it would be cool to do a review video of them as a companion to go along with it. Because as the years progress, they're dated. They're not good examples. And if there was a companion review video explaining what we see as problematic or good, I think that could probably be useful. Yeah.
Yeah, excited for that. Hopefully next week we'll do another review show with one of Anthony's either older videos or we'll see.
Yeah, we'll pick one of my videos, maybe put it, and then we'll stream it to my channel because I want you guys to get some exposure. Your work needs to get exposed. And other people that aren't here also, like Nathan and Mark, for example, or other people who are creating SE stuff. I want to make sure we get the word out. Oh, technical question.
Yeah, Jeff says, I'm just beginning my exploration of SE. Is there any entry-level camera setup you recommend? We just got another funding request from someone else who is looking to get into a minimal video SE camera setup. So I haven't researched the latest equipment and what's available now. So I'm going to be doing that for this person. And then I'll post a link to the list of equipment somewhere, probably on Discord somewhere. So just keep an eye out for that. And then hopefully
basically any GoPro type camera will do, right?
Just one camera. One camera if you want to do the on the street type of stuff should be fine, and then you can just get more complex after that.
Yeah, you could use your phone or two phones. Use the bottom of your phone as a microphone, and then use another maybe older phone as the video or whatever.
I've got to go.
Yeah, actually,
GoPro.
Depending on what one you want to get. If you want to just improve your SE skills, it just takes your smartphone to just record the audio, and that's all you need for starters. But if you wanted to start a YouTube channel, then yeah, sure, simple GoPro will help.
Mark's using a GoPro 360, and I got one of those, and it's amazing. You can capture everything. The one camera in a coffee setting can catch an angle of that person, an angle of me, an angle from out there. I don't know how it does it, but it gets an angle of both of you out there with the one camera. So I've got a long extended tripod, so I'm going to try that in the street, see what the GoPro 360 looks like in an Anthony style street setting as well as the camera, and see how that works.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, that's cool.
One camera to rule them all. One camera to find them. One camera to stream them all.
Yeah.
And on YouTube, like them.
Alrighty, cool. Sweet. So yeah, thanks again, everybody, for coming on to the review show. See you next week.
Bye, guys. Good to see you.
Yeah, see you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.